Hello everyone. So the tutorial in Paladins isn't great, and I'm here to make a quick video covering the very basics of how the game works. The tutorial hasn't been updated in over 4 years, and there are some fundamental mechanics that aren't covered. This tutorial will cover how the game works and everything you need to know on how to play Paladins, aside from how to move, aim, shoot, and use abilities, which you should know from the in-game tutorial. If you want to redo the tutorial, click on Play, then Training, then Tutorial. You played a character called Victor in the tutorial, which you should do. It gives you the very basics of how to play the game, and gives you enough gold, which is the game's free currency, to pretty much unlock a new character. The game calls them champions, but whatever. So characters, or champions, have a weapon, free abilities, and an ult. If you want to know how a certain character works, you can go to Champions, and then click on them to view abilities, then on Advanced to learn more. Or, you can go back to the main menu by using this back arrow up here, click on Play, click on Training, and then click on Shooting Range. It'll bring you to a little arena where it's just you playing, you have everything unlocked, and you can just mess around. There's no goal in the shooting range. We're going to talk about these menus in just a second, but let's skip them for now. Press Escape, then change Champion to change Champion. This is Barrick. He's a fun frontline who's also cheap to buy. Highly recommend him with the This Is Dumb loadout, and we're going to talk about loadouts in just a second, but for now, back to Victor. Press Escape, swap loadout to switch your talent and loadout. But what are talents and loadouts? The tutorial doesn't mention them at all, and you have to pick them before playing a character. So what's up with that? Talents and loadouts are the core systems of Paladins. They're a huge part of the game. Each character has 3 talents. Talents change something about your character in a big way. Before we go over these, I just want to point out that if you don't want to mess with these, you just want to play the game, and you want to learn these things at your own pace, there's ways to do that. Using Victor as an example, since you know what he does from the in-game tutorial, the Cardio talent makes you heal when you're running, the Shrapnel talent makes your grenade bigger, and the Burst Mode talent changes the way your weapon works. It gives it a bit more control and range. So you pick one of these at the beginning of each game depending on the situation, which one you think will perform better or which one you find more fun. Then you pick a loadout. The game gives you 3 default loadouts, one that complements each talent. Loadouts are made from cards. Each character has 16 cards, you get to choose 5 cards, and you have 15 points to spread between them. That's a lot of words, but it's easier to show than tell, and it is pretty easy. You will get the hang of it after you see it. So let's say that we want to make a loadout for Victor. We're going to hit Escape, back to Lobby, and yes. We'll go to Victor's loadouts by clicking on Champions, then Victor, and then Loadouts up here. And we're going to make a new one by clicking on an empty space. You can write over the default loadouts if you want, but we're not going to. If you do want to overwrite a default loadout, make sure to hit this Clear All button before you do. There's a bug where sometimes it won't save if you don't click Clear All. So now we have a lot of options. If you don't want to bother with this, you just want to play the game, do that. Just use the default loadouts, they're perfectly fine. Are they optimized to be the best? No, but they're fine. But if we do want to make our own build, which, by the way, in this video, we're not going to be going over like strategies or the best builds or anything. I will be making a video on basic strategy and how to get into ranked and more of how the game works and not just how to play it, and that'll be linked below if it's already out. Back to loadouts. So we get 5 slots and we have to use all 5. So let's click on one. We're going to select a card that looks fun, and we're going to click on it to select it, and then cool, that card is now in our loadout. And we're going to do this for all 5 slots. If we want to replace a card, we can click on it and select a new one. So now that we've got our cards, we've got to assign 15 points. You can see this bar at the bottom here represents that. So we're going to use these plus and minus buttons to distribute the points. So let's do something like this. When we're done, we hit Save and Exit down here. You can't save and exit if your build doesn't have 5 cards and 15 points. If you just want to import a loadout from someone, let's say there's a content creator you want to take a build from, you go to make a new build, click import, enter their name, find their profile, select the build that you want with these arrow keys here, hit import, and then save and exit. And cool, we've got loadouts now. That's all there is to it. Choosing cards and assigning points. What about talents? Well, just like how we can view abilities, let's go to the Overview tab up here. There's a Talents section. Talents aren't unlocked right off the bat. You unlock them over time by playing that character and leveling that character up. You can view that champion's level either in the Progression tab or when you're viewing all champions. So now that we've got our new loadout, we can go back into the shooting range. Sometimes it takes a while to load in, or looks like it freezes a little bit. So we're going to select Victor, select the talent that we want, select our loadout, and there we go. The last thing before we move on is remember all this is skippable. You can just pick any talent, a default build, and leave auto buy items on if you just want to play the game. That's perfectly fine, but this wouldn't be a really good tutorial if I didn't tell you how to do stuff. So let's talk about items. There is a setting to have the game buy your items for you called auto buy, and it's fine for starting out. You can find it by going to settings, then gameplay, then it's down here. So you can leave this on if you want. But items are pretty straightforward. If you press I, it opens up the item store, and there are only 16 items. If this looks different to you, it might be because auto buy is on. You can turn that off in settings, leave the shooting range, and then rejoin the shooting range if you'd like. Going back to the item store by pressing I, you can see how many credits you have up here. The shooting range gives them to you for free, but usually you get them throughout the match. So you can click on an item, and each item has free tiers that increase how strong it is. So let's say we want to buy Wrecker, which increases how much damage we do against shields. We click on Wrecker, and we can either click over here to buy it, or we can double click it. If we want to buy tier 2 Wrecker, same thing, we can double click, or we can click over here. And you can see what the item does. Instead of 50% extra damage to shields, we now do 100% extra damage to shields. So we can buy a maximum of 4 items. You only need to buy items when you die, or in between rounds. There is an item called Cauterize that was recently removed, and that was Anti-Heal, which was very important. Anti-Heal will now be given to you automatically over the course of the game. It is displayed to you when you hit the tab menu at the bottom here. And that's it for items. You get credits over the course of the game, get to buy 4 different items, and can level each item up to level 3. And we're going to press I again to close the shop. Now Victor is a damage character, so what about the other roles? So we've got frontlines, or tanks as they're commonly called. The game doesn't mention this, but there's a concept in the Paladins community that's super useful. There are 2 kinds of tanks, main tanks and off tanks. Main tanks are better at holding space, they're more passive and don't have much mobility, and they usually contest the point, the objective. Off tanks are better at taking space, they're more aggressive and usually have a lot of mobility, and they usually contest the enemy's damage characters. They don't worry about the point so much. What kind of role each tank plays depends on what kind of talent and loadout they run, but most tanks are better at doing one than the other. Damages are the main damage dealers. They usually sit back and shoot stuff like Victor, but they also have tools to push up and be aggressive. Flanks are very similar to damages, but they can move around a lot and are faster, but they also have a lot less HP. You don't really need one of each. Having 2 damages or 2 flanks or one of each, it's all fine, but some people prefer having one of each. You'll commonly hear people call them DPS, which includes both damages and flanks. DPS stands for damage per second, which means how much damage a character does, but DPS is just a term for damages and flanks. Supports are the healers. They sit back, they keep things alive, and they have stuns and slows and stuff. Some supports have talents and loadouts that make them into damage characters though. But there is another way to heal that isn't getting healed from a support character, and we're going to go back on the shooting range for this. This little notification pops up if you get a game while you're not tabbed into Paladins. So if we go into this room and step on this circle here, it spawns these 2 bots. If we step in front of them, we'll take damage, and you'll notice this bar at the bottom starts to count down. and if we let that bar go all the way down, we start to heal up. But if we take damage or shoot, the bar refreshes and we stop healing. This healing is called out of combat healing. It's super useful, you can just chill and heal up. If you're coming over to Paladins from Overwatch, this is what Paladins has instead of health packs. Let's quickly talk about mounts, which is that horse that you rode in the tutorial. You will automatically get a mount at the start of each round and when you respawn if the mode that you're playing has mounts. You can dismount by hitting any ability button, and you lose your mount if you take damage. Now let's finish with game modes. TDM, or Team Deathmatch, is 5v5, no mounts, no objective, first team to 40 kills wins, and a game takes around 10 minutes. Onslaught is very similar to TDM, except there's an objective. Standing on the point when the enemy team isn't gives your team 1 point per second, kills give your team 5 points, and it's the first to 400 points. More players on the objective never increases how many points your team gets in Paladins. You only need one person standing on the objective. Onslaught games usually take around 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes the game will sneak King of the Hill games into Onslaught queues, which just means that the objective moves around sometimes, and kills give 3 points instead of 5, but otherwise it's the exact same. You can just play whatever you like in these modes, roles aren't very important, they're just for fun. Siege is the main game mode of Paladins. Siege is 5 versus 5. Every round, there's a capture point. If you stand on the point, you slowly capture it, and if you get to 100%, you get 1 point and a payload to push. You get 2 minutes to push this payload. If you push it to the other team's base, you get another point. If you can't push it in those 2 minutes, the enemy team gets a point, and it's the first to 4 points wins, but you can't win off a defense. 2 other small things: if your team is losing, you will capture the objective a bit faster, which is called comeback mechanic, and there's also overtime. If a round is ending and a team is still on the payload, overtime will happen and will last until no one on the attacking team is on the payload. Overtime also happens on capture points if one team were to capture the objective by hitting 100%, but both teams had recently contested the objective. Usually in Siege, you'll have 1 main tank, 1 off tank, 2 DPS, and 1 support. Or sometimes you'll have some variation on that. Roles and team compositions matter a bit more in this mode, but it's still just for fun. Sometimes you will see another mode in the menu. These are temporary modes called LTMs, or limited time modes, and they're just for fun and they've got crazy rules and they're pretty unique. When you start playing Paladins, no matter what game mode you queue for, you will be playing against bots until you have account level 5. You can view your account level in the bottom right corner of your screen. And remember, the best way to learn things is to just give it a try. If you want to practice without the pressure of playing with other players, you can go to Play, Training, and queue for bot games. You will have some players and some bots on your team, and the other team will be completely bots. So yeah, that's Paladins. We went over characters, loadouts, talents, items, roles, out of combat healing, mounts, and game modes. If you're interested in other tutorials, I'll be releasing that introduction to ranked and basic strategy sometime soon. If the video's been out for a while, then that'll be linked below. Ask questions in the comments if you've got any, I guarantee that I will answer them. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.